Welcome to today's Explainer. If you're an operator or a marketing director in the senior care space, I know exactly what you're feeling right now. You're sitting at your desk, staring at those monthly reports, looking at your budget, and just feeling this deep, nagging sense of frustration. It's like you're pouring money into your marketing engine, but the engine is just kind of sputtering, right? Our title today really hits the nail on the head. You're spending more on Google Ads and getting less. Here's the real problem. Today, we're going to unpack exactly what's happening to this hard-earned marketing dollars, and more importantly, how the most successful operators are actually fixing it.
Because let's be real, this is the exact question keeping you up at night. Why are you spending more on ads but getting less? You haven't changed your core strategy, your sales team is working just as hard as ever, and yet the ROI just seems to be evaporating right in front of your eyes. It literally feels like pouring water into a leaky bucket. And to make matters worse, that water is getting more expensive every single day.
Section 1. The rising cost reality. Before we can even think about fixing this, we really have to acknowledge the brutal landscape we're operating in right now. So let's dive right in. $250 to $700. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the average Google Ads cost per lead in senior care right now. And I want to be super clear here. That is not the cost of a move-in. That is just the cost of a lead, a name, an email, maybe a phone number if you're lucky. When you're paying up to $700 just for the bare opportunity to speak to a family, the financial drain on your operations becomes absolutely immense. Every single click carries this massive, heavy weight on your bottom line. And understanding why this is happening is absolutely crucial. We're seeing some major structural shifts in how people look for senior care. First off, families are starting their research on AI tools instead of traditional Google search. They're asking conversational AI to recommend communities rather than just typing keywords into a search bar. Because of this shift, the overall search volume on Google is steadily declining. But here's the real kicker. You still have the exact same number of operators out there, right? And they're all bidding on a shrinking pool of those exact same keywords. Basic supply and demand takes over, and suddenly your cost per click goes through the roof. It's basically a perfect storm for budget drain. Section 2, the post-click problem. If you've been hyper-focused on just the cost of that click, you might actually be looking in the wrong place. See, there's a massive gap between the perceived problem and the real problem. The perceived problem is the rising Google ad costs and the declining AI search volume. This is what everyone is complaining about at all the industry conferences. But the real problem, it's what happens after the click. The reality is that the click itself isn't the primary issue we need to solve here. The real leak in your bucket is what your system does the moment that wildly expensive click turns into an actual inquiry. Section 3, the conversion math. Now, we're going to get a little analytical here for a second because the numbers tell a truly fascinating story. Let's set a baseline that probably looks pretty familiar to a lot of you running these campaigns. We're going to break down the math on an $8,000 monthly Google Ads spend that generates 20 inquiries. Just keep this scenario in your head. You're spending $8,000 and you're getting 20 families raising their hands to say, hey, we need help. Okay, so this math brilliantly illustrates the immense power of focusing on the post-click experience. In your current state, let's say you convert 10% of those 20 inquiries. That gives you 2 monthly move-ins. Divide your $8,000 spend by those 2 move-ins, and your cost per move-in is a staggering $4,000. Ouch, but look at the improved state. If we increase that conversion rate by just a mere 5 percentage points, bumping it from 10% to 15%, with the exact same budget and the exact same leads, you get 3 move-ins. That is 1 additional move-in per month. And since average assisted living revenue sits between $4,500 and $6,000 per resident, that single extra move-in generates an additional $54,000 to $72,000 in annual revenue. From the exact same ad spend, you literally don't need more clicks to make more money. So if a mere 5% increase can generate over 70 grand, why is that gap there in the first place? Well, that brings us to Section 4, the 5-minute window. A 2026 study revealed something absolutely astonishing. 74% of businesses completely miss the 5-minute response window on new inquiries. Think about that. Only 26% respond in time. When a family submits a form for senior care, they are almost always in a high-anxiety, emotionally charged state. They're looking for immediate guidance. If your team isn't getting back to them within 5 minutes, you are already falling behind the curve. But honestly, missing the 5-minute window is just the tip of the iceberg.
47 hours. That is the devastating average response time across the industry. 47 hours, no way, right? That is almost 2 full days of a family sitting in a crisis just waiting for someone, literally anyone, to acknowledge them. And here is exactly why that delay is totally fatal to your marketing budget. Families don't just reach out to one place. They're usually comparing 3 to 5 communities all at once. A 47-hour delay means those families haven't just been waiting around for you, they've actively connected with your competitors. They've already had a comforting conversation, they've booked a tour, they've started building trust with someone else. Ultimately, your precious ad investment is paying to reach families who are already slipping away to the community down the street. You paid the $700 for the lead, but your competitor got the move-in, simply because they answered the phone. Section 5, Fixing the Funnel. We know the math, we know exactly where the bottleneck is, so let's talk about the mindset shift required to actually fix this for the future. Consider this reality. The operators growing occupancy in 2026 are not spending more on clicks. They are building systems. Success just isn't about buying more ads anymore. Success comes from building robust, reliable systems to work every single inquiry you've already paid for, moving them instantly from a click to a meaningful conversation. You have got to systemize your follow-up so that the 47-hour average drops to absolute zero. So I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. Where is your funnel losing families after the click? I challenge you to look closely at your own processes today. Are you letting $700 leads just sit there for 2 days? If you want to identify those leaks and build a system that actually works, start your first conversation or check out a demo at silvercore.io. Don't just pay for clicks, build a system that actually converts them. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you take back control of your marketing return.